Story 1. Stop using taxpayers' money to build football stadiums for wealthy owners without providing taxpayers a return on the profits generated by their investment. Story 2. Actually solve problems for us living here, such as healthcare, education, and retirement, instead of endlessly supporting special interests, lobbyists, businesses, and corporations. Story 3. Safety net. I know it is hard to keep track, but what do we do when we just cannot land a job? Starve? Story 4. Universal health care without the insurance industry. Too many people go bankrupt due to medical costs. Story 5. Parental leave. My country hates immigration yet is so dependent on it because it fails to support producing the next generation domestically. Other countries in Europe have better paternity leave than my country even has maternity leave. It also has high suicide rates, and with the stress of juggling raising a newborn while being expected to work, I can totally see why. Story 6. Limit the number of houses that corporations and individuals can buy. Companies do not need to own family homes, and a person should not be able to buy unlimited houses. Housing should not be treated as an investment item. Story 7. Make healthcare and housing less of a luxury and more of a basic right. It is really not that wild of a request. Story 8. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Story 9. Stop arming Israel. Our quality of life does not compare to civilians being massacred by a genocidal regime daily. Story 10. Tax the millionaires and billionaires so they pay their fair share like everyone else. Require states to properly fund schools as intended with lottery funds. Fund medical research using tax revenue to help those with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, and other conditions. Negotiate pharmaceutical prices to match the costs in Mexico. Story 11. As a senior on a pension, I think that paying taxes at the end of the year on money that I already paid tax on when I earned it is unfair. Story 12. Properly tax the wealthy and mining companies. Limit the number of houses you can own without living in them. This will never happen. Story 13. Not unconstitutionally imprisoning people and subjecting them to inhumane conditions. Not stripping away healthcare access for millions of Americans. Not engaging in pedophilia. Story 14. United States specific. Stop the urban sprawl. A large amount of money is being wasted building excessively long sewer systems to low-density areas or having to build separate facilities for isolated areas. The same applies to power and all other public services you can imagine. Story 15. Fix the wealth inequality and fix the economy. It is crazy how we have all just accepted how bad it has become and been misled by the older generation that it is not that bad when the cost of housing and college has skyrocketed. Make life more affordable. Story 16. Criminal charges apply to individuals who profit from government-funded businesses and, through negligence, fail to keep children, elderly people, or individuals with disabilities in their care safe from harm. Story 17. It is too easy to hide large amounts of money in government. Make it more accountable for the pennies as well as the dollars. Story 18. Politicians should stop trying to make themselves and their donors rich. They should put the money back to the people who elected them. All political officials should have a fixed salary, and no donations should be allowed. Running for president should have no donations allowed at all. Look what happened. Story 19. Get money out of politics. Actually invest in people, not just the powerful, wealthy few in corporations. Story 20. Legalize marijuana. Make medically assisted death legal. Make abortion a right. Universal medical care, dental care, and pharmacare. Year-long maternity and paternity leaves for parents. A fully funded pension. Affordable daycare like they have in Canada. Story 21. Stop reducing welfare and increasing national debt. The only thing not affected by the welfare cuts is pensions. They also cut taxes for the wealthy. Disappointing populists. Story 22. Proportionately tax the ultra-rich and corporations to improve our quality of life. They are destroying our natural landscapes with mining, oil and gas extraction, and poisoning our water. The least that could be done is to pay for us to have good healthcare. Story 23. Stop thinking that everything needs to turn a profit. Universal healthcare, public transportation, social safety nets, these are all considered wasteful spending but are necessary. Story 24. Abolish student loans. I do not have any personally, but they are a painful drag on the American economy. Story 25. I want the government to protect me from things I cannot protect myself from. That includes foreign entities, disasters both natural and man-made, domestic criminals and cults, and predatory businesses. Story 26. Actually regulate corporations, increase minimum wage, regulate landlords, expand and increase social programs, provide universal health care, affordable education, affordable child care, improve public schools, and invest in mass transit. Story 27. Make it illegal for politicians and judges to accept all forms of private money. Government must work for the people, not billionaires and corporations. We must rescind all corporate charters and rewrite laws governing corporations, greatly restricting their activities and reducing their legal protections. By doing this, society will no longer be directed toward corporate profits but toward improving our lives. We could have universal health care, free education, free childcare, maternity leave, jobs with meaning and benefits, real retirement with opportunities to travel and enjoy life, a national high-speed rail system, clean air and water, better food, long prison sentences for white-collar criminals, corporate attorneys required to spend half their time defending low-income individuals, prohibition on corporations owning other corporations or parts of corporations, such as intellectual property, elimination of inherited fortunes through estate taxes, restructuring Wall Street and changing how it operates, taxes on financial transactions like stock trading, tracking every financial instrument and share of stock with a serial number using systems like blockchain, removal of artificial intelligence, social media, and dangerous technologies from the control of billionaires, intelligence tests for voters, politicians, and possibly parents. Story 28. Changing the school system to make it easier for special needs children who do not qualify for special education. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism, so homework is grueling and classes are too long. If alternative schools were free, I would attend immediately. Story 29. Bomb the Middle East, threaten war with Iran and Russia from time to time, raise the retirement age, spy on us, argue about abortion, bail out banks, provide corporate welfare, and add red tape to health insurance. But that is only half of the work. They should do these only half the time. The other half, I need them to focus on fundraising billions for their elections. If they can hold rallies, sell merchandise, and pay for celebrity endorsements, even better. If they can achieve these things, I think we should let them play golf and dance with their friends at P. Diddy Island. Story 30. Recognize mental illness diagnoses from other countries. The mental health care system here is inadequate. If you do not receive care as a child, you have little chance later. The system is very strict about which doctors can diagnose specific conditions, despite many professionals in this field being highly incompetent. Story 31. Universal health care, like every other half-civilized country. Universal early childhood support and pre-kindergarten programs so having a child is less financially devastating. Pay teachers what police officers make so they stay and succeed in raising future generations. Actual climate change remediation so my grandchildren won't have to live north of the Arctic Circle. Story 32. Subsidized daycare, like in most wealthy countries, universal health care, and adequate maternity and paternity leave are all normal benefits in wealthy countries and many non-wealthy countries. However, we are often led to believe these things are undesirable. The doubling of student loan payments is going to hurt many families in the coming months as well. Story 33. Return to the pre-Reagan 1970s tax structure that supported a healthy middle class. Billionaires should be taxed out of existence. Break up big technology company monopolies. Regulate social media. Implement universal basic income. Story 34. 1. Make it easier to become a first-time homebuyer. Prevent large corporations from buying residential real estate. 2. Make quality education accessible to everyone. Restrict colleges from charging excessive tuition fees. Story 35. Stop being so corrupt, incompetent, and unwise. If they fix those problems, I would be 30% less stressed. If by fixing those problems they address other issues as well, then I would be as close to stress-free as I could ever get. Story 36. Stop large American companies from overcharging us. Less food and packages, higher costs, random charges on receipts, smaller portions at higher prices when we eat out, outrageous rent increases, and inflated house prices because corporations are buying them all contribute to the problem. Meanwhile, their profits continue to grow excessively, and we are funding this greed. Enough. Big government, do what you promised to do. Story 37. Normalize a 4-day work week, even if it means 10-hour days for the other 4 days. Allow businesses to choose either Monday or Friday as a day off, significantly reducing traffic on those 2 commute days. Story 38. Leave me alone. Do not take my money. Do not give me anything. Focus only on first response services, police, infrastructure, and the military. Keep the market fair. Do not give money to people who will never be productive. Less is more with government. I have the ability to navigate life without help. Just get out of the way and stop with social experiments and wealth redistribution. Story 39. Actually protect transgender individuals. Things have just been getting worse for us because of transphobic people. Story 40. I am in the United States of America. The United States of America needs universal health care. Taxpayers are paying for it anyway. They just do not want to admit it. Story 41. I would love it if 30 hours were considered full-time. I know for some jobs it is, but it is unusual. I feel like everyone would be happier if we just worked 30 hours, but granted, that would only work if we were still getting the same weekly or monthly pay. Story 42. Tax wealthy individuals and actually support working-class people so they do not go bankrupt from medical emergencies like a broken bone. Improve childbirth protocols and procedures because women are dying during childbirth. Although I have yet to review the statistics of other countries' mortality rates, I know ours is abnormally high. However, this change is unlikely because this country neglects the needs of women, and hardworking people will be forced to work until they die of old age. Story 43. Universal healthcare, affordable housing, and the cost of higher education are critical issues. Without oversight, capitalism and greed have caused all 3 of these to increase out of control. Story 44. Raise the minimum wage, start a program helping people get their first house, stop attacking transgender people, and implement universal healthcare. Story 45. Free healthcare for all. I had an injury recently, and the difficulty I faced in getting medical care was almost worse than the injury itself. If you have an injury, you should be able to go to the doctor and get it taken care of without worrying about insurance. Story 46. Get cars off the road, build mass transit, and repurpose large parking lots for businesses and housing. Story 47. Return to the Eisenhower administration's tax rates on the wealthy and allocate the funds to productive initiatives, such as rural broadband connectivity and national high-speed rail, to promote economic growth in rural America and enhance mobility across the United States. Story 48. Fight racism and xenophobia. Do not make deals with fascists. Tax the oligarchy. Leave the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and denounce the genocide being committed by Nazi Israel. Story 49. Stop actively trying to destroy my quality of life. Stop defunding schools. Stop funding the petrochemical industry. Stop pretending anti-vaccination activists are legitimate. Stop persecuting LGBTQ people. Stop snatching brown people off the street by secret police. Stop pretending diplomacy is worse than warfare. Stop funding polluters. Stop interfering in women's health. Stop opposing socialized medicine. Stop attacking teachers. Stop using the military as pawns. Stop lying to the people. Stop gerrymandering. Stop lobbyists. Stop dark money in politics. Stop being anti-science. Stop favoring the religious right. Stop pretending the Bible is more important than the Constitution. Stop ignoring the Constitution. At the very least, stop interfering in every aspect of our lives in a negative way. Story 50. Tax at 90% after 5 million. Invest in all green energy projects. End subsidies and tax breaks to oil companies. Implement universal health care and free college. Wealth disparity and global warming are our greatest threats. Story 51. Reconfigure the tax rate. In New Zealand, Australia is often seen as doing many things better. Yet when the left-wing Green Party offers an alternative budget that includes lower tax rates for lower-income earners and a higher tax bracket for high incomes, an extra 2% on incomes over $250,000, if I remember correctly, it is dismissed as too leftist, even though it does not go as far as the current Australian system. I know Australia is wealthier than New Zealand, but this is about income tax and income redistribution. It need not lower the total tax revenue. We still tax people making under $20,000, for example. Since everyone is taxed at the same rate for the same income, it is inherently fair. Some people are stuck in a certain mindset. For example, a friend got a pay raise and then complained about moving up a tax bracket, thinking he would pay the same rate on all of his income. Smart enough to earn good money, but not smart enough to understand tax brackets. Sigh. Story 52. Enforce the antitrust laws to begin with, to break up the monopolies that control prices and return true competition to the marketplace. We need to strengthen labor unions while ensuring careful oversight. Removing former President Donald Trump and his associates from office would be beneficial. However, it appears that the government cannot do this. They tried twice to impeach him and failed, and then he was re-elected for a second term. As long as his supporters prevail, other changes are unlikely to occur during his tenure. Story 53. 1. Create a mechanism to severely punish companies that conduct unsolicited spam or marketing calls through civil and criminal penalties. 2. Pass laws that severely punish wrong deliveries or require generous compensation to shippers and customers by companies such as Amazon, United Parcel Service, and Federal Express. There is no excuse in 2025 to deliver a package to the wrong street address. None at all. Story 54. Improving education will create citizens who can think for themselves instead of relying on others to make decisions for them. This will lead to less chaos, conflict, and confusion, allowing businesses to flourish and proceed without interference. Investing more money in schools and less in prisons will result in less crime and violence. A country of free thinkers allows the laws of economics and other systems to function properly, without obstruction. Otherwise, squeezing out the middle class will make society uninhabitable and unenjoyable, first for the poor, then for the rich, and for future generations to inherit a state of decline and regret. Story 55. You cannot answer that question unless you have complete transparency about what really happens within the government and where our taxes actually go. Story 56. I know everyone is saying universal basic income, but quietly any alleviation would be nice. For example, if everyone under $50,000 in my home state could get electronic benefit transfer, it could free up their budgets to focus on other things. Alas, it is wishful thinking. Story 57. Freeze rents and provide universal health care for everyone. Neither would help me directly, but these are things I want for others. Story 58. My standard has lowered about 1,000 feet. I will settle for roadkill being cleared off the road within a week or so. Story 59. Whatever it takes to lower the cost of living. I have cut out as many non-essential expenses as possible, eat as infrequently as I can, and only go to places that are on my commute to work and back. I am $400 per month short of meeting my obligations. I am going to need another job this coming week if I want to keep my utilities on past August. Story 60. Close residential streets to motor vehicle through traffic. Build good bicycle lanes. Remove loud motorbikes and cars from the roads. Open some outdoor swimming spots. This would improve not only my own quality of life but also build adventure playgrounds for children. Story 61. Disconnect insurance from employment. It is very frustrating when your employer changes their insurance providers. It interrupts relationships with healthcare providers, dentists, courses of treatment, and prescriptions. It creates a situation that disrupts continuity of care. Story 62. I doubt there was a single government on the entire planet that is interested in improving the quality of life of its citizens. I am not sure it is even on their roadmap. Story 63. I have no faith that my government will do anything to improve our situation. Sometimes, I feel overwhelmed and hopeless. If you are struggling, please consider reaching out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You do not have to face this alone. Story 64. Approve these Phase 3 psychedelic studies that are nearing completion for those with generalized anxiety disorder, treatment-resistant depression, and major depressive disorder. Story 65. I am pretty sure it is not a government job to improve my quality of life. I can do that myself, but it is important to know that you are contributing something valuable to humankind. I try to do that because it makes me feel good, and I think my job is to make people feel good. Then you have two people who are happy. Does that make sense? Story 66. I cannot say what I want to say, so instead, universal basic income would also be nice. I would be collecting garbage and flipping burgers for the love of the game if the daily abuse were no longer a factor. Story 67. Amend the Constitution to create an online real-time plain text system where every self-aware resident can propose governance actions and vote on them using ranked choice voting in real time. Then resign. Story 68. My quality of life has not been too impacted yet, but I know several people who have either been laid off or fear layoffs due to recent Department of Government expenses related budget cuts. Stopping that would be nice. My life is generally pretty good. Story 69. Most people do not even notice or understand. The Dutch government collapses almost every year, and it is no accident. It is a tactic. Bypass real debate, push through controversial policies, and quietly detach from the people they claim to serve. Over time, it has evolved into a sophisticated form of authoritarianism, cloaked in parliamentary rituals. In some ways, it is worse than an open dictatorship. At least there, you know what you are dealing with. But this is a hidden monster that strangles everyone slowly. At this point, maintaining some degree of normalcy or anything resembling the past is a win. Improvements are a luxury barely anyone can afford here. Story 70. Ban smoking. I do not care about the tobacco lobby. Universal health care. Stop reducing funding for education. Higher rates of education lead to lower crime rates. Do not push trades on everyone. Maybe have a test in 8th grade, and those who dislike school can pursue trades. Let the rest of us learn subjects that are interesting and beneficial to society. Those in trades can work in their fields and earn a living without negatively affecting the rest of the class. Story 71. Universal healthcare is available in every developed country except the United States of America. This situation is unacceptable. The United States is committed to enriching insurance executives at the expense of every working-class American. Story 72. Make lobbying illegal. Put the citizens first in every decision. Stop wasting money on unnecessary projects and foreign aid. Provide quality health care for all as other countries do. We can too. Implement term limits and restrict stock trades for Congress. Allow judges to be elected by the people they serve and set term limits. Story 73. Build more parks, sidewalks, greenways, and affordable mixed-use housing neighborhoods. Stop subsidizing corporate leeches. Story 74. Subsidize childcare. Overhaul the healthcare system so it is not tied to employment. Subsidize education. Build affordable housing. And invest in infrastructure. Also, start a program to train people in the trades, as there is going to be a huge shortage of skilled workers soon. Story 75. This is for everyone. Regulate hospitals and health insurance companies. People often blame insurance only, yet they do not realize the money-making scheme most hospitals have. It should not be this out of control. People should be able to afford healthcare without needing insurance. Story 76. Stop hiring private contractors to build anything related to the government. Private contractors exist to charge the maximum possible amount of money for the least possible work. Then they sue the state for double the cost of the project because they did not make enough money. After that, the state has to hire another contractor to fix all the mistakes made, and the cycle repeats. Story 77. United States here. some positive healthcare improvement. Either cheaper or ensure they follow through on what we pay for. Ideally both. Right now, the premium is $1,530 a month for my family of 3. The deductible is $13,500. Story 78. Stop trying to fix things by adding more laws. If anything, the government needs to get out of the way. Story 79. Encourage densified housing, walkability, and bikeability, especially around urban centers. Shift the tax burden from property to land, particularly in urban areas, so owners of underdeveloped lots cannot reap the rewards of land speculation while paying minimal taxes. Story 80. Honestly, and I realize how impractical this would be, but I want every American entitled to up to a 1-week hospital stay once per year. If you don't need the full week, great, but I believe most people would. During that time, you would have general health checks, blood work, and more. Discover if you are deficient in anything and develop health plans to follow. This idea came from talking with a friend. I concluded that a team of doctors and nurses could almost certainly find enough health issues with an average American to warrant a week-long hospital stay. I understand that we don't have the resources for this, but this is my idea of what would most benefit the most people. Story 81. Stop doing the drill candles budget routine with police funding and acting like we cannot have basic public transit or park benches without problems on them to harm homeless people. But I guess that makes me some godless communist or something. Story 82. We follow how taxes are implemented in the rest of the world. Then we provide universal health care, also known as Medicaid, which has worked for the last 30 years for people with disabilities. Everyone says we need a study on universal income. It already exists under supplemental security income, which serves as universal income. Story 83. The Ontario government should stop threatening to remove bicycle lanes and allow municipalities to make their own decisions for urban and traffic planning. They should stop closing down historical institutions and use federal funds to properly support healthcare. These are the issues that affect me. For the rest of Ontarians, the Ontario government should use federal funds to support the $10 per day daycare program and reinstate all the climate change and environmental programs that were canceled. Story 84. Keep their dirty hands off my hard-earned money, spend within their means, and stay out of my business if it is not hurting anyone. Story 85. Have the companies that own apartment complexes make at least 50% of their income based on rent. Repeal the law that allows companies to deny rent for prior eviction. The price of fruits and vegetables should be low cost or free. Sorry, took night medication. Story 86. Increase housing supply. It is enormously depressing to know that I will have to get a loan of almost $1 million to buy something that is only a fraction as good as what friends and family purchased a few years ago, and they paid half as much. It is like spending $250,000 on a second-hand Toyota Camry while friends and family are all driving around in Rolls-Royce vehicles that they paid the same amount for. Story 87. Reinvest in public transportation, education, healthcare, and social services. Nationalize industries that are mature or have an impact on public safety. Institute an automation tax and universal basic income. Overturn Citizens United, legalize bribery, and break up the trusts that have been exploiting the American people since before it was legalized. Story 88. It is the government's job to perform tasks that further the preamble to the Constitution of the United States of America. To this end, various governmental institutions have been created to perform a number of tasks. Forecasting the weather as accurately as possible and without limiting access only to those who can pay for it. Ensuring disputes are settled equitably, the guilty are punished and recompense is given. Without bias. That patents and copyrights are properly awarded and inventors and creators properly rewarded. That highways, dams, bridges, and other infrastructure are built and properly maintained. That educational opportunities are equitably provided, including higher education. That public health and safety are provided for, and so on, with the responsibility of providing these facilities resting with duly elected officials. In many respects, our current government has willfully ignored these responsibilities. Would you like a list? Let's begin with transportation and encouraging a robust recycling industry. Story 89. National healthcare. It is impossible to become seriously ill in the United States without going bankrupt. The United States is the only developed country in the world without national health care. Also, eliminate the use of coal. Clean coal is a myth that major polluters use to justify themselves. Because of coal and other pollutants, the United States is among the highest polluters per capita on the planet. We should also abolish for-profit prisons and anything similar. Morality should still matter. Story 90. United States American here. Tax the wealthy, build infrastructure, provide affordable or free healthcare, and address the student loan crisis and the housing crisis. Also, at this point, the grocery crisis. Story 91. Allow unrestricted stem cell therapy. It is ridiculous that I have to go overseas for it and risk losing money on a scam clinic because the federal government cannot allow treatments. Story 92. Forgive student debt. Dismantle corporate power, empower labor unions, prohibit corporate ownership of single-family homes, and implement nationwide rent control. Story 93. Make insurance cover ongoing chronic illness-related healthcare. I just received a letter saying that because I am not improving, they are not covering physical therapy. I guess I will stop, get worse, and start again. Story 94. Make it illegal for companies to hire multiple temporary employees to fill roles that could be done by less temporary employees. It destabilizes the economy for everyone by suppressing spending, removing upward mobility, and making more people rely on government subsidies. To survive, this creates more poverty and lack of realistic opportunity, which leads to higher crime and desperation. Additionally, it worsens your experience as a consumer because temporary employees are not given incentives to provide good service, if they even have time to do so. Story 95. Create a fund, also known as a death tax, that pays your expenses when you die unless you choose to opt out or earn a specific amount of money. I am not in favor of taxes, but everyone dies, and the financial hardship that causes most families is too significant to ignore. Story 96. Every person working for all governments, including federal, state, and local levels, quits so that the government cannot function. There would be no wars, no taxes, and no abuse by unjust systems. Story 97. Criminalize outsourcing and H-1B visas. They are just a way of suppressing wages and workers' rights. Ban corporate ownership of residential properties. Medicaid for all with the inclusion of dental, hearing, and vision coverage. Tie the minimum wage to the cost of housing. Minimum wage for 40 hours a week must be enough to afford a one-bedroom apartment. Rent can only increase by a maximum of $200 per additional bedroom. Story 98. Eliminate billionaires. They contribute nothing to society and lobby against progress for 95% of the country. Story 99. Take the money out of political campaigns. Have television debates with no funding from the public or corporations for any candidate. Remove all political television advertisements as well. The candidate should be allowed to have a television commercial but only to talk about themselves and what they plan to do if elected, without mentioning their political opponents in any way. Story 100. Politicians should be completely anonymous. Political candidates should be unknown. The only information given is their policies, labeled as Candidate A, Candidate B, and so on. This approach would eliminate bias based on bigotry or party affiliation and make it more difficult to confuse their stances. It would also help challenge the two-party system in the United States, allowing more candidates to be recognized. Story 101. I know this is a pretty common issue in the United States, but I really wish we had some sort of universal health care. Having to rely on my job for health care is really difficult. I lived in the United Kingdom for a year, and even though the National Health Service is infamously criticized for many things, at least it exists, and you can see a doctor even if you are unemployed without it costing a significant amount of money. Story 102. Thank the tanks. Get rid of huge petroleum reserves at the mouth of America's largest western river. The tanks are in Portland, which is overdue for a large earthquake. These tanks are not earthquake retrofitted at all. It is a known natural disaster waiting to happen. I would vote for any candidate who would address this issue. Story 103. Well, over half of them resigning would massively improve things at this point. A more important first step would be them actually following and enforcing the Constitution and caring about our rights. They are not doing that anymore, and it is causing problems. Story 104. By far, the one thing an honest government would do is bring back sound money. Fiat currency is a scam. It is robbery. Story 105. Enact universal healthcare. If we did not have to worry about health insurance all the time, it would be heaven. Story 106. I cannot stress this enough. Do nothing for a single congressional cycle. Not a single thing. Story 107. Stop making new laws. Every few months, our government creates new laws that further restrict our internet freedom and general freedoms. Story 108. Healthcare. Just like investing in improvements at home for all people, not just the wealthy. Story 109. Extend paid maternity leave or benefits in some way. Nothing about the United States government makes me excited about motherhood or ready to have my first child. Everything is expensive, and artificial intelligence is affecting job security. Will there be a future for today's children, including mine? If they even make it that far, because they are not safe in schools to begin with. Story 110. Just enact whatever Iceland and Norway are doing with the best outcomes. Dismantle the military-industrial complex and create a future of diplomacy and cooperation globally. Bombs dropping as a solution is the biggest indicator of failed policies and lack of intellect and imagination. Story 111. Put a proper tax on hoarded buildings and sites, and give it to the tax department to collect. Implement a use it or lose it tax, where any building or site can be taken from an owner who is not using it, and then built on or rented out, with the owner receiving a fee. Owners should not be able to hoard property while people sleep on the streets and adults in their 40s and 50s live with their parents because they cannot afford to buy a home. Story 112. I can only think of two ways the government could help me by making changes. Reduce my taxes. Allow me to use my Medicare insurance overseas. Story 113. It is not the government's job to improve my quality of life. This entitled attitude is why things are wrong. Story 114. The government will not do anything to improve your quality of life. You have to do it with your community. Rely on those who are physically beside you, not those who support your ideas online. Story 115. Probably going to get downvoted into oblivion, but I do not rely on the government to improve my quality of life. The rules have been the same for a very long time. Get an education, develop a skill, or get a degree that is needed, contribute, work for what you need or want, retire, obey the laws, then pass away. I went to school, earned an engineering degree, work hard at my job to provide for myself and my family, and stay out of trouble. The only thing that would improve my quality of life would be to keep more of the money that I earn, but again, that is not and has not been how the rules work. Story 116. Invest in artificial intelligence to prevent the gains from being taken by those with extensive resources who use it solely for their profit at the expense of everyone else. Story 117. Since the mayor of New York City and the governor of New York willfully gave $10,000 debit cards to migrants who caused chaos in the city, I propose those two officials do right by the citizens who have been here for a while and give us $10,000 debit cards now because I need a car. Story 118. Build more trains. High-speed rail is the best way to travel and would help solve many housing issues. Imagine being only an hour away from a major city while living 100 to 150 miles away. Story 119. They take a significant part of my money, so I do not have to worry about spending it. They are doing quite well. Story 120. Set more reasonable priorities and remove funding from things that are wants, not needs, which we clearly cannot afford. Story 121. Admit that deficit spending cannot last forever. Negotiate a debt consolidation with the world and open the country to foreign investment from all countries. Stop pretending it is a national security issue. It is about their desire to maintain power and control so they do not feel humiliated for letting our country deteriorate to this point. Story 122. Repeal the 1934 National Firearms Act. Remove gun-free zones. Treat concealed carry like a driver's license. Require free and instant background checks on all purchases without the firearm serial number. Implement the Eddie Eagle program in schools, and make healthcare affordable. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.